In part 1 of Russia's geopolitics, we talked about the external objectives of the Kremlin and how these objectives shape Russia's foreign policy. But equally important are Russia's internal dynamics, and the answer to this is connected with the historic decisions that transformed Russia into a centralized autocratic empire. And as unpleasant that empire was, that is how Putin's administration is governing the country today. You see, a decentralized Russia which endorses freedom and liberty can theoretically exist, but the last and only time Russia attempted to form a democratic free society was during the Yeltsin era in the 1990s, and that era is remembered for the Great Economic Depression, massive urban migration, and the nationalist religious secessionist movements in North Caucasus, which nearly broke Russia apart. For the Russians, this was evidence that Western values and principles could not work in Russia. So when Putin first came to power in the year 2000, he consolidated his position among the oligarchy and slowly changed the country back to a centralized bureaucracy. One of the first things he did was to return the Russian intelligence network to its prime position in the political system. He merged the Border Guard Service with the Federal Security Service, and basically he raised an army of 250,000 people for the intelligence apparatus. And then he further centralized the whole system by placing the FSB direct under the control of the president. Putin then moved to nationalize companies such as Gazprom, Rosneft, and United Aircraft Corporation, and use these companies for geopolitical means. If this sounds familiar, that is because Russia is returning to its historic authoritarian method of governance, and in this context we will look at the critical objectives within Russia. Welcome to a Caspian Report by me, Shirvan. For more information, visit the social media pages. Russia has a population of 143 million. About 77% or 110 million live in the European part, and the remainder of 23% or 33 million live in the eastern part. The country is home to at least 160 different ethnic groups and indigenous people. About 20% of the total population is non-Russian. All of this spread over a country almost twice the size of Canada, and to keep everything running is an enormous undertaking to say the least. One of the historic and current problems of Russia is providing common goods to its central and far east cities. These cities are located so far away that the transportation costs are simply too high to make the goods affordable. So to keep everything running, the Russians drastically centralized the government and subsidized for the transportation expenses, and thereby reduced the prices of commodities and ultimately stabilized the country. But remember, not everyone wants to be part of the Russian Federation, and not everyone wants a centralized government. So to enforce central control and to suppress any secessionist or nationalist movements, Russia needs a strong intelligence foundation. What you have to understand here is that the Russian intelligence apparatus is one of the largest and one of the most sophisticated networks out there. It is only rivaled by the American and the Chinese. And the main agency, the FSB, focuses on the former Soviet states, and more importantly, the FSB mostly focuses within Russia. The agency has infiltrated every large political, security and business realm in the country, all the way up to the highest levels. This includes organized crime and the Russian Orthodox Church. The Russians have been building their network for at least half a century. So when the Americans support NGOs and call it human rights activities, the FSB suppresses them and calls it foreign interference. The role of the FSB is further highlighted in its fight against separatist movements in the North Caucasus, and this is another objective that Russia has to deal with. The truth is that the ethnically and religiously diverse North Caucasus is a flashpoint within Russia. Many of the native populations in Chechnya, Dagestan and Ingushetia oppose any kind of Russian ruling. If even one of these regions manages to break off, it would have a domino effect throughout the entire region and the remainder of Russia. Secessionist movements would spring up in Circassia, Karachay-Cherkassia, and even in far-away regions such as Tatarstan, Bashkortostan, Chufassia, etc. Even Europe's only Buddhist state, Kalimkia, would be part of that uprising. And this secessionist domino would also extend to Russian majority regions such as Kaliningrad. So therefore it is imperative that the FSB is in control of Dagestan, Chechnya and Ingushetia. This is where the separatist domino would kick off. The FSB strategy to deal with this issue was by turning the whole conflict into a civil war amongst the Caucasians. So nowadays it's a matter of delicately managing that civil war. Ultimately, Russia needs to maintain a centralized form of governance to keep everything running. And they need to maintain a strong intelligence network to keep everything stable. A side effect of this is that Russian institutions and civil societies will further weaken as the country will become more and more authoritarian. It's not really 21st century or even fair, but Russia simply doesn't have any other alternative solution. And this is just the way things are done. The third Russian objective is to modernize its army, air force and military industries. The thing with a standing army is, you have to equip it with the best possible equipment and acquire the best possible vehicles at all times. Anything less than this is like a barking dog that can't really bite. Russia is already in midst of modernization, but still lags behind in quality when compared to NATO. Having a combat-ready military doesn't mean you actually have to use it, just having one ready is sufficient. This also applies to the military industry. You see, the Russian military industry has its financial limitations, and over the past few years, this has created several technological shortcomings, meaning Russia's military hardware has gotten less and less competitive over the years. When you can buy a German BMP that outperforms the Russian one, then the Russian industry is losing clients and thus taking a loss in sales. Also, having a competitive military industry prevents Russia from being dependent on foreign military supplies. So this serves an important goal. And to keep its industry alive and profitable, Russia needs to keep it competitive. And one way that Russia manages this is by promoting cooperation between Russian and Western military companies. Now you may have noticed that the Russian Navy wasn't mentioned. That is because the modernization of the Navy is simply irrelevant. Russia doesn't have any warm water ports with open ocean access, so any modernization in this field is merely symbolical. But this does bring forth the next objective: gaining control over warm water ports with open ocean access. This endeavor would enable Moscow to expand its commercial ties and gain access to the global trading system through the oceans. Now, it's true that Russia does have ports in the Baltic Sea and the Black Sea, but both these ports are blocked by the Turkish and the Danish Straits. And since both these countries are part of NATO, it restrains Russia's naval capabilities to such a degree that the Baltic and Black Sea ports become obsolete. One thing that is important to note is that sea-based trade has on the average 10 times lower transportation costs than land-based trade. That is a significant margin, and so the importance of this goal cannot be overstated. Only if Russia ever manages to acquire a warm water port, only then it would make sense to build up a strong navy. But the thing is, the Russians have been trying to control a warm water port for centuries. The closest they came was during the Russian-Japanese War of 1905, but they lost that war. Even a global power such as the Soviet Union never managed to accomplish this goal. So in the current situation, this objective is far beyond Russia's reach. The final critical objective for Russia is the modernization of its energy industry. Given that energy revenues form a large portion of the Russian budget, it's essential that Moscow maintains the production levels. The problem is that as time goes by, more and more of Russia's energy resources are extracted from remote and far regions. This raises the costs of transportation and extraction and lowers the production levels. So over time, things will get more expensive and less profitable. Therefore, it is important that Russia develops new technologies to increase the production levels in the long term. One way to achieve this is by promoting cooperation between Russian firms and European and American energy companies. These are the most important internal dynamics of Russia that keep the country going and keep the country stable. And together with the Russian interests in the former Soviet countries, which we explained in a previous report, together they form the geopolitics of Russia. And even though Russia is clearly a strong and influential regional power, it is not a global power. Only if Russia can maintain its internal dynamics and overcome its external objectives, only then can Russia return to its superpower status. This was a Caspian report by me, Shirvan. Thank you for watching, and sağ ol.
I have never seen the amount of people hurting like we are seeing right now. And it's not just us. When I say us, this church. As you can imagine, I know a lot of other pastors who are pastoring churches, and they're saying the exact same things. People are going through difficulties, hardships, health, financial, mental, spiritual, marital, like we've never seen before. Now, you might say, well, it's because it's a big church, so a big church has big problems. This has been a big church for a long time. I've never seen it like we're seeing it right now. We need to pray tonight. We need to look, maybe in a way, a fresh new look at the Lord and His desire for us. I've just gotten in this evening, a couple of hours ago, been with a friend since early Monday morning that has gone through everything that can possibly be done to sustain his life, to bring, hopefully, a healing. Every bit of chemo appropriate for this type of cancer. Everything you can imagine. Even experimentation stuff. Even stuff that physicians said, we can't do this to you because the test will kill you. But being able to pull some strings and for this man to go through those things and survive those tests, all along the way, following God, hanging on to God, watching, faith in the fire, and as he's going through right now, remember this, going through the valley of the shadow of death. Christian, you and I do not go through the valley of the shadow of death after you're dead. That's victory time. It's from the moment you tonight or your life tomorrow, you've already been exposed to the news maybe for your life, that you've got this illness, you've got this situation. And from the moment you're brought to that place, when the doctor or doctors say to you, this is the deal. This is why you've had headaches. You've got a mass that's near the stem of your brain, your spine. We cannot operate on it. We can only bombard you with radiation, and we don't know what's going to happen. The moment you hear that, you begin now from that moment, not only your fiery trial that all of us as believers will experience. Every Christian must go through and will go through a fiery trial in life. No Christian escapes this. But listen, my fiery trial will be different than your fiery trial. Mine might be an accident, yours might be a cancer, or whatever, doesn't matter. It will take you and I to the brink of our faith. Do you understand that tonight? Christian, listen. You will not escape. But can I say this? It's nothing for you to escape from. God has engineered for you and I to go through these fires in life. And they might even, with the advent of the news, take us into eternity. The fiery trial begins at the revelation of the news. And listen, at some point in time, you will wake up to the fact that this Christian, you or I or us together, at some point in time, whatever, we have now entered in the valley of the shadow of death. It's the whole thing that we go through now. And I want to speak to you tonight about this. I've traveled so much since I've seen you last. My brain is scrambled, and I think it was last Saturday. Lisa and I were up at Daisy Merrick's graduation service. You know what I mean, graduation service? Her funeral, graduation service. And that God-glorifying event, you hear about faith being strengthened, you hear about faith being tested, you hear about faith being realized. And all the while I'm thinking about families and couples and singles in this church that are literally battling for their life right now, and they're wondering, it's universal, people, it's universal. Every one of us will be brought to the point at some time to ask God questions. And one of the most obvious questions that we want to ask God sometimes is, why is this happening to me? I mean, we have a tendency to do that over the slightest things, don't we? Why is this happening to me? And as that question progresses in our lives, why is this happening to me? Why is this marriage messed up? Why is this child this way? Why is this happening? Why? As I sat with my dear friend this week, I asked him, have you thought? I haven't heard you say why, ever, in your years of battle. It's been battling this for years. I haven't heard you say why yet. I haven't heard you ask that question yet. Tell me about that. And he said, why not? I said, explain. The world has fallen. I've read my Bible. God loves me. I don't like the timing of things. Okay, think. God loves me. Personally, I don't like the timing of things, he said. But I want you to think about that for a second. It's never the right time, according to our estimation, to go through fire. When would you sign up? If it was left to you, when would you sign up for fire? If God says to us as Christians, you will have tribulation in this life, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. If God were to say to you, there's going to be events take place in your life that are so hard for you, but hang in there. I'm going to pull you through it. And this has got to happen. It's for your spiritual blessing in eternity and for your witness now. You are my child. I have my name upon you, and I've got the perfect plan to glorify my name through your life. And when you get into eternity, you will say to me, thank you for all of that stuff. Christian, listen. What are you going through? What will you go through? There will come a time in eternity when you will say to God, thank you for everything. Hey, let me put it to you this way. Those of us who are Christians, do you remember all the stuff we went through before we realized God loved us? Before we got saved? Were you sexually abused? Were you beaten up? Were you abandoned? Were you rejected? Were you what? It doesn't matter what it was. It was your horrific life. And then you become a Christian, and the more you yield to God in this area, the greater He uses your past. This is the key, by the way. You want to be a Christian, that's fine, but you don't want to give Him all the stuff? Then you'll never have that stuff of the past become a great victory. Give him all this. Surrender completely and watch what he does to the brutality of your previous life, your BC days before Christ. This was Jack, BC, in a land far away, in a time forgotten. When you bring that to the Lord and say, God, I realize you created me, you love me. Your Bible makes it says clearly that before the foundations of the world were ever laid, your mind had me there. You had me. That being the case, I surrender all, and all the stuff of my upbringing, I can either hang on to it and never get the answer, I can hang on to it and let it kill me, I can hang on to it and try to figure it all out, or I can get smart about it and give it to God. And then when he has a hold of it, he uses those very, very horrific anchors and balls and chains that were tied around your legs, and he turns them around, and I don't know how he does it, but he forges wings out of that stuff. And you wind up saying, God, thank you. I thank God for my upbringing now. I want to say it publicly. I thank God that I was rejected. I thank God that I wasn't wanted. I thank God for all the stuff that went on in my life. And I got to tell you that before Jesus, I never would have been able to thank God for that. But I do now. So in that same light, I want you to think about this. If what's happening in your life here and now, in your fiery trial, then how much more will it be when we come to the end of this life, whenever that might be, and we take one fresh, brand new breath in eternity? I believe I will be turning back with you saying, God, thank you for all of the sickness. Thank you for all of the heartache. Thank you for all of the whatever it was that made your word bigger in my life. There is no way to see God in all of his power in this world without difficulty. There's no way. Psalm 107, verse 19 says, Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them out of their distresses. He sent his word and healed them, and delivered them from their destructions. You need to hear this tonight. I need to hear this tonight. When a man turns to me and says, I'm good, please listen to this. I'm good to go. And I can even say goodbye to my wife. We've had a great marriage. I'm good to go. But he said, I can't say that yet. Please pray for me, Jack. I can't say it yet about my kids. I just don't want to part with the smell of their hair or the sound of their voice. And the question is, well, when would be a good time for that? There is no good time for that. When we think about it through our angle, from our perspective, there's never a good time for that unless we look at it through God's eyes. This takes huge faith, people, that I think God will impart. It's called grace and his mercy to be able to say, I am going to give my children or my wife or my husband into the hands of the Lord. He brought them, listen, because guys, men, we've got this thing about us because we're arrogant and crazy that my family needs me. And what do they, oh, they need me. Listen, okay, I understand the emotion, but the truth is God will take care of them. And I say it and you hear it, but it's nothing until you have to live it. That you really, really, really look your wife in the face or your kids in the face and you commit them into the hands of the Lord. And my heart breaks as a pastor because I see people, just in this church, I see people who have invested in the Word of God. They have studied the Bible. Then they have done everything within their heart's desire or passion to do the Bible. They yielded themselves to, and they've grown. And they get the news. And they catch their breath. And they say, okay, God knew this before eternity. And Lord, here we go. And they grab verses just like this. They cry out to God. And look what it says. They cry out to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them out of their distresses. I know how you hear that right now. I know how I hear that. I know how you hear that. This is how we hear it. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, which only lasted for about 24 hours. Right? And he saved them out of their distresses, and everything was perfect after that. And then, in fact, they just wound up, living their life, and it was just fantastic. But that's not what it says. It could be that way, but I have found it's not often that way. Usually we finally cry out to God after there's been a long road of suffering. Then, when it says that he delivers us from our distresses, could it be that part of that delivery could be, if not the ultimate delivery, is that he takes us to heaven? And he happens to use a head-on collision like I saw coming down from the men's retreat on Saturday, where a man was killed right there on the mountain just outside the camp. Where did that guy go in eternity? I don't know. But all of his earthly concerns and earthly troubles are no longer a factor right now. He's in eternity. When you make the Lord the focus of your life, this verse 19, Psalm 107, Lord, I'm crying out to you. Your word says to deliver me, that you will deliver me from my distresses. I don't know what that means, God. I just know that you will deliver. And listen, you will deliver the best possible way for me. Church, listen. You and I may not agree with how he does things because we're humans. But what he does is absolutely perfect, and he's not asking for our approval. When my friend said, why not? That's the right response. Who are we to ask him why? We didn't ask him to come into this world. Make me 6'2". We didn't ask him that. God had a plan. He still has a plan. And whatever you're going through, whatever suffering you're experiencing, he hasn't abandoned you. In fact, can I say this? It's rather strange. I'm hoping it might mean something to you. But in the darkest moment, in the darkest hour, sometimes we only have a grip that's with our nails, and we're hanging on. And so when someone says, you're going to die, the doctor says, you're not going to live long. Isn't it interesting if we would just pause? Because, see, our emotions take control in the moment, in the instant. But what if we were to back up and then consider this for a second? Wait a minute. I want to live. Any normal person wants to live. Any normal person wants to be healed. And God does heal in some situations. Why not all? I don't know. The way this world's going, sometimes maybe the healing is passing away into his arms. But this situation, when we are gripped with this and we're hanging on, we back up and take a deep breath in the moment of our doubt, and we have to think something. I'm talking just bare bones, face on the ground, crying out in our distresses. What am I concerned about? I don't want to die. So you must love life. Of course I love life. What's the next issue? Death seems wrong. Yes, it does, doesn't it? Agreed. You want to live? Death seems wrong. Where do you get these ideas from? Maybe you're here tonight and you're saying, man, I don't even know if I believe in God anymore because all the stuff that's gone on in my life. Wait. Just your argument proves that you know it should be going better. You know it should be going better. You want to live because God put that in you. And even death is a witness of the veracity and truth of God's word. Think of it. Even death is a witness to his truth. Because it's this book that talks all about death. It's this book that tells you how to beat death. Think about that. I love that. Jesus Christ, listen, if you're a Christian, the moment you accept Jesus Christ, you have just found the cure for death. Take this pill, it'll cure your what? Take it. Okay, take this pill. It'll cure your upset stomach. Well, I'll tell you what, take this pill, it'll cure death. Jesus said, if a man were to die believing in me, yet shall he live. How cool is that? Have you found the cure for death? Even death itself bears witness of the truthfulness of God. Oh, death's the ultimate. No, it's not the ultimate. No. Life is the ultimate. Jesus came promising eternal life. Exactly what you want. Isn't it amazing? So the doctor hands you a slip. Listen, let's be honest. All of us are going to get some sort of a slip someday. It could be a slip, a piece of paper, or a slip in a banana peeling. The result is the same. Eternity. As Christians, and I don't understand this, as Christians, God uses suffering in our lives. It has an eternal dividend, has an eternal reward for us, and he uses it in our lives to minister to other people who are watching or listening or know about it. It's weird. It's amazing. When I'm in the grip of doubt, I counter that reality by saying, well, God, can't you do it some other way? God, if you're glorify your name some other way. I mean, you can do anything. Pick something else. And no sooner those words come out of my mouth when I'm telling God how to be God, that they actually fall right back on my face and I can feel it. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like, can you just forget you ever heard that, God? I mean, I don't know the answer, but I know that was not it. Our emotions rise up against our faith. And how awesome is the Bible when it just looks you right square in the face and says, cry out to the Lord in your trouble, and he'll save you out of your distresses. And church, I want to ask you, will you let God save you out of your distresses the way that he has decreed for your life? There's a family. I'm just bringing up one family right now in this church. The wife, as far as I can tell, as far as I know, is in perfect health. She's got a husband, and she's got 2 little children, I think both under the age of 3. And one of them, I think, is 1 in diapers. But because of her husband's illness and what has become of him, he has been radically devastated by whatever this thing is that's attacking his body and his brain. And he's completely now she's got 3 children to take care of, so to speak now. He cannot rise up. He cannot get out of bed. And for whatever the situations are, this particular group says, well, we can't pay for this anymore. And this particular group says, well, you can't do this. And then the mortgage company is saying this. And this woman is in a vice. And we're trying to figure out how to help her. And we don't know what to do yet. We're working on it. This is one family here, one. And the mom now, she's the caregiver to 3. But some authority just told her, you've got to go back to work or else this is what's going to happen. And then she put her income together, and to go to work to meet the requirements of the state, the care that must be given to her husband and her children cost more than what she gets paid at her job. And the state said, tough. That's what you do this. And that doesn't even cover their home. You say, oh my goodness, this is horrible. Listen, there's people in this church. You might be sitting next to them who are living out their lives right now in the grip of these worldly pressures. And I've read in my Bible, Jesus loves me, but I just kind of need to see something. You see? And we're all like this. And I want to encourage you tonight, every one of us has something to bring up before the throne of God right now tonight that is burdening our heart. It may not, listen, your life may be perfect right now, but it may be your children. It may be maybe your adult children who are godless or off the path or whatever, I don't know. It could be your spouse. It doesn't matter. We've all got something. It could be so far removed from you, it's an uncle in, wherever. But don't we have something? If you don't have something, we need to check your pulse. But some of you may be sitting here tonight, and there is something coursing through your veins, and it shouldn't be there, and you're wondering that, or you're feeling, I have an alien in me. It is this stuff in my blood, and it's killing me. And if I can't get a new kidney or a new something, I'm not long for this world. And you feel almost like you are at war with yourself because there's something in you. Or you've got a tumor, or you've got a cancer, and it's like, what in the world's going on? I sent them my word and healed them from all their destructions. God's not a liar. See, tonight when I read that verse, you're thinking, that's great for some people. No. That's our emotions yelling at us right now. It's not great for some people. It is God's word. And he says to his kids, I've sent you my word, and and will heal you from all your destructions. The word is the answer. Yeah, but what if I die? The word is the answer. It's much longer and deeper and more real, this Christian life, than this world we're living in. And every one of us, unless the rapture happens, will go through the valley of the shadow of death. And the thoughts will come into our mind. Where's God? Oh, he's with you, Christian. He's with you. You're not going to slip through his fingers. You are not going to be dropped. You guys, he said, and I paraphrase, cheer up. I have named every one of the stars that you can't even count. He says, I've given them names. Now, I don't know if God did that when he was bored one day or what, but how cute is that? Let's name those things. And he's naming them. And aren't you more valuable than a star? What is your worth compared to the solar system? Well, it's been there a long time. I haven't been here very long. Don't compare yourself, though, as equals. Don't compare yourself as some equal to the sun, to the moon. That's silly. You see the moon tonight? If you didn't see it coming here, you'll see it tonight. It was brilliant, huge. As awesome as it is, as old as it is, it has no knowledge of your existence whatsoever.